Good evening. This is the Rowley Finance Committee meeting for March 3rd. Time is 7:18 p.m. and we call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is discuss the fiscal year 15 budget guidelines and revenues.
Shouldn't it be 16 before 16?
It should be
Yes.
16.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah. Someone's paying attention. Of course, we can always rehash last year's. Maybe we'll get it right. Okay. I think we all have the preliminary draft of the revenues.
No, is that in this?
Right,
Oh, right here, okay.
that one.
Mr. Chairman, the selectmen have asked all the departments to level fund expenses, provide for the contractual obligated cost of living increases, and that would apply also to non-union. And so unless there's something that's a fixed cost, they can't, something, the cost of something is going up, or an assessment on something, every department budget should essentially just follow those guidelines. So if there's something that's not within the guidelines, and any of the budgets that come before you, there'll probably be a notice to explain why, this increase on something.
Right,
So I just
okay.
wanted to let you know that's what we're all working under. And then this preliminary draft balanced budget sheet more or less reflects those budget guidelines and what we're expecting for, on the municipal side of cost increases to come up. We don't know what the Triton assessment's gonna be. We're working off a rough estimate of a 4% assessment increase, though we haven't been told that yet. And we still are waiting for some other things to come forward.
Right, the Triton estimate, I think, is on page 2, fourth line down, the 333,154, the change. Should be the increase. But basically, going back to page 1, the bottom line is the snow removal is $200,000 over the budget that was as of February 23rd. So we are still going over budget and continue to do so with each snowfall, setting new records in snowfall and over budget on snow and ice removal.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
I know that every year that usually is a factor in a lot of the budget stuff, but does the town plan to distribute that over a period of years? Because I think you can do that, right, if it becomes so excessive that we can't absorb that all in 1 year?
I know sometimes the DOR, under extraordinary circumstances, may allow that. We put that right on the next budget year, so that deficit that we're seeing right now will be taken right off the top on fiscal 16 that we're seeing.
So if we can cover it, we'll try to do it.
Well,
but-
we're
yeah.
planning to cover it.
Okay.
That's our
But
modus operandi.
there is an option to spread it out, I think, a little bit if you had to, right?
Yeah, I can't say that. I know on occasion there've been some certain guidelines issued by the DOR on certain things regarding extraordinary situations. I can't say that we've ever practiced that unless there was an exception that the DOR granted.
And one
But
other
we've
question.
never had that issue. We've been able to absorb it.
Has FEMA contacted?
Yes, the emergency
For the one
management.
storm, or how's that working?
Yes, our emergency management director, Chief James Broderick, has been in contact. He is trying to tally up costs, and I believe his deadline was Thursday. We didn't really have any significant, structural damages or issues to any of the municipal buildings. So it's really the snow removal costs that he and the highway surveyor, Patrick Snow, are working on right now. So he is working on something, and actually Amy from the office was talking to him today about that, so.
I saw in the news a few days ago where Governor Baker was asking for $50 million for snow removal. Is that to help the cities and towns, or is that, do you know
Just
if
the
it's the
state.
state
That was
roads?
state.
That's just the state. I think.
State roads, it's
Yeah.
not for the cities and towns?
Yeah, so that must be for Mass
I didn't hear, it
DOT.
didn't say what it was for, that's why I was
Well,
asking.
he has spoken, I believe, to Washington about trying to get some FEMA money, and I think that's what Mr. Roy was talking about. If we can get
Okay.
some FEMA money into the state based on, usually it's one storm, but I think they're going to consolidate all the storms or certain storms for different regions of the state that were hit, mostly the eastern side of east of Worcester, I think. And that's where there may be a possibility, if there's enough damage and cost for, like Essex County, then that gets sent into MEMA, and then they tabulate to see if it warrants,
The extra aid,
correct, from the federal government.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Okay. The bottom line, as you can see, is we're 54,427 short, and that doesn't include any of the stadium, anything for Pine Grove School as far as updating it, or the stormwater mandate.
The governor's budget should be issued tomorrow, so hopefully we'll get some, the state aid numbers, that are, we're calling the cherry sheet. Potentially, there could be an increase, maybe not. We always plan to level fund. And also, the Triton School Committee is waiting as well for the Chapter 70 amount so that they can plug that into their budget.
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay. Let's see. Well, since Brent Bazelak isn't here, he's at his meeting, we can go ahead and discuss the conservation budget. Again, I apologize for getting it to you this afternoon, but I think that's gonna be a way of life for us. That we might, if we get it the day that we're gonna meet, we might be lucky, otherwise it's gonna be the night we meet. I don't think there are, the only increase was the mandatory wage increases, and on the expenses, he's level with that.
Is that the customary, I mean, not customary, but is that the number that the town's using for non-union employee raises, 2.6, at the cost of living? And-
So he has a step adjustment, which is a 1.25% spread, and then there's a 1% cost of living applied to that the compensation table. And there is one more working day in fiscal 16 because it's a longer year than normal.
161 days.
And he may have a longevity
Yeah, 320.
stipend that's added on to the overall.
What is the longevity stipend? I mean, I know what it is, but I mean, is it like is it 5 years, or is it?
Yeah, there's a threshold, I believe, up to 20 years, 15 years, I think. Maybe it's 375. It depends on different
I mean, where does it
unions.
start? I mean, you start at 5 years? Do you have to be here 5 years to get longevity?
Yes, I believe it's 5, 10,
Okay, so
15,
it's 5 years.
20, 20?
Yeah.
It
And
depends.
it depends on the union. So
Yeah.
some unions have a very different longevity schedule. But a non-union one mirrors the AFSCME contract.
Okay,
I was hoping that, department head would be here, because one of the other questions I wanted to ask every department head is, basically, do they see or foresee any shortfalls in the current year that we need to be concerned about? Or do they see any cost benefits that we might be able to save and roll over, or I just wanted to see where they were in their budget.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately, he actually has the Conservation Commission meeting at 7:30, so we had double booked him, not realizing that when we set this out. I can certainly speak to him. He apologized. He did send a letter to the chairman.
right.
He has access to the notice of intent filing fee account that's directly tied to the Wetlands Protection Act. So anything that comes in that's a filing fee related to the Wetlands Protection Act, he can use only, that revenue as a direct cost to offset that. However, he's got so much stuff now that he's working on outside of the Wetlands Protection Act. We have the local wetlands bylaw. He's really the coordinator on all the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System requirements coming out of the EPA under the Clean Water Act for the town. So he's been attending the meetings, the trainings on all that's coming forward. So we've been kind of sending him out of the selectman's office to go to all these trainings. He's got the background for it. And any other environmental issues that come up, he's working on. The other piece is land use management. The Conservation Commission holds many parcels of town conservation land, and he's working on mapping and trails. He just finished the Huntsley Hill Trails. He's working on the Brad Street conservation land. We just purchased the Girl Scout land. I mean, you're talking well over 100 acres of land and trail systems that he's going out on the weekends, because he does enjoy it, walking through, clearing the walkways. So he's got a lot that he does for a $2,000 a year expense budget.
Does he have a revolving account, do you know?
No, he just has access to that NOI account, which is just related to the Wetlands Protection Act.
Okay, any other questions or so? Can I have a motion to recommend the budget?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
A second.
Any
I
other
guess I'm
discussion?
gonna ask the question, Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to ask the question again, because I wasn't here last year for the budget, I apologize, but my question is, if we approve this budget tonight, is there any time in the future where we can adjust it if we need to, because of the Triton school budget affecting other budgets, or I guess
We being the town or the finance committee?
Well, I mean, you have to have a balanced budget at the end.
Right.
I mean, we're voting these budgets as they come in. I mean, we don't know what the bottom line is gonna be when we get to the end. I mean, we could vote all these budgets and find out we're got more money than, appropriating more money than we have. I mean,
At
right now, we're
town meeting, you can-
$54,000 short.
You can lower them at town meeting.
But I think we're going on the
Yeah.
assumption that the funding will be there for these, with no increase to expenses and level funding as much as possible. But we can and we would have to, if Triton comes in, then we would have to review all the budgets again.
Mhm.
We have in other years, when an override hasn't passed for the school, then we've had to go back and cut every budget line, so. And all we're doing is recommending for town meeting.
Right.
But in a couple of past years, we have held off on the larger departments and not voted on those until we've seen all of them. We've really just done the smaller ones, so.
Yep, okay.
Just a couple different ways of doing it.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of recommending the conservation budget, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the budget is recommended. Okay, why don't we go early, jump to town moderator.
Oh, that's an easy one.
Yeah.
I'll immediately recommend that we recommend this budget. It's $100.
Right. Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second, any discussion on the $100 stipend? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, let's see, Board of Assessors is next. Now, on Mr. McFadden's budget, he had a $820 increase for professional services. And that goes to page 3, where there is a software upgrade from 5200 to 5725. I think he's going from V6 to V7 on the software upgrade. And then the $400 increase on the map update, which is an anticipated increase. So that's where, otherwise he's level funded on the expenses, and the typical wages and salaries are within the guidelines. Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the assessors?
I like the motion.
Okay, I have a motion to have a second.
I'll second.
Second, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Now, let's see, the planning board and street lights we're not covering, correct?
That's right.
So we're down to, and those are just postponed
We got
because the
hydrants?
select one, yes, so the next one will be the hydrants.
I'll make a motion that we recommend the hydrants. I'd also like to make a motion that they make the flags on the hydrants higher so we can find them.
See what I
Or
can
the
do,
snow
Mrs.
lower.
Emery.
I like the snow loader. Yeah, I like
Snow
that. Mr. Chairman, can we just explain a little bit about, I know
Sure.
what the rental is, but is it rental per hydrant, is that how it works, and, or is it just a flat fee?
It's supposed to
Get the-
be rental by hydrant, and so apparently it's level funded because they're not expecting to have more hydrants in the next budget year. There's no new hydrants coming online.
Right. Okay, I have a motion, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Signify by
Aye.
saying aye, aye.
Right.
Okay, recommendation carries. Okay, let me see if we can get through item 6. Dennis made a very good point a couple of weeks ago about the 5-year budget considerations that each department, we do have a 5-year plan where we're looking at capital expenditures, but also to look at in a 5-year plan what increases in personnel might be needed, salary increases projected, and this is just to get a better handle on, we'll say, a 5-year budget projection. Again, to see if we can look into our crystal ball a little bit better or so.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I really wasn't looking to have a 5-year operating budget, because that's just too much work.
Well, it's not
and-
really an operating budget, it's
Yeah.
more as,
I would like to see a capital budget,
Mm-hmm.
a concrete capital budget thought out by each department, large departments, or every department actually that spends capital money. For the reason, even though in the perfect world, if their department could get whatever they wanted, what do they actually need for the next 5 years? I mean, it's a thought process that I think every department head has to go through, even though it's more work, but it gives some thought as to what is needed in each department, so that when we collectively get all the requests in, we could see pretty much that obviously we're not going to be able to fund even half of what we see, but it's some thought as to what's falling apart in the town. I mean, we know some things are falling apart, but like last year, we had a request in the middle of the year for the wharf. I mean, that was falling apart long before it got to the point where we had to do some emergency funds. I'd just like to see what needs to be done for equipment. We know we got the Pine Grove School and all those large items there, but what are the other small things, like what needs to be done in the town hall, what needs to be done, you know, in the fire department, police department for cruises, and upgrades for rugs and things of the buildings. I think each department head should. I have a form that I can draft up if you want.
Sure.
And present it next week and see if that's agreeable, and we could ask the department heads to, unless the town has one already, I'm not sure, but I can show you the one that I've got that I think is an easy spreadsheet to fill in. And then I would ask that any requests that come in this year, we have a detailed written sheet of what they're looking for and how they came up with the number for that particular item. Not just a hard number. I mean, go out and get a quote or something, a ballpark number that we can actually look at and say, this needs a higher priority than something else. I know the selectmen will weigh in more than we will, but as a finance committee, I think it's our job to look at the bigger picture. And as scary as it will be, it's still there. It's not going to go away. These items aren't going to go away. And I haven't seen it here, but I guess there is some format that has been used in the past. But I think it's important that in these times that we look at that every time we get into the fiscal year, so we can see what we're up against. Because when I was in Public Works and I had $6 million